My name is Shallis. I am a top producing loan officer at the fifth largest bank in the United States. I'm actually also called the realty coach in some circles, and the success. We've started basically a collective of really intelligent, highly skilled people like these two gentlemen and Faye, who's in the background there somewhere, of real estate and mortgage professionals. And really, what that's called is we call that the Success Addicts Collective, where we kind of discuss different things, different topics. And today is, I was chatting with Eddie this morning, Eddie Skinner. Thank you for bringing this up to light for me. I showed him some numbers, and I said, "Hey, here's my numbers." And Eddie, why was I doing that? Do you think you can help some people out? What did me and Mickey hold each other? What do we do with each other there?
Partially, I think hold each other accountable, partially encourage each other.
Oh, yeah.
This business can be a lonely business if you're out there all by yourself trying to make sense of it. And so you need some buddies in the business that you can say, hey, what's working, what's not, and be an encouragement to each other.
Here's the funny thing. Eddie, where you live?
I'm in Houston,
Texas. Where's Mickey?
North side of Houston. Mickey's in Dallas, Texas.
And how far is that between you guys?
Probably 3.5 hours.
Jesus. I didn't realize
we're in Texas, baby. Everything's bigger in Texas.
Everything is bigger. I keep getting an education for the past couple of years. I've been hanging out with you guys. I've gotten quite the education.
Yep.
And then and Mickey, who we talked to, is in Dallas, basically, right?
Right.
And what's interesting is it kind of proves the point. You don't need to be on top of each other. It helps to have somebody near you or close to you, but you don't have to be on top of each other to have accountability partners. Somebody asked me one day, this, what's your best accountability partner? I go, have a kid and tell them you're going to take them to Disney if you hit your goals. They are relentless. So you asked I sent you a thing showing you that, hey, I doubled my number again this year, and I did it for the past 3 years. And you said, well, how do you do that? And how do you do that in real estate? And at first I replied to you and saying, well, it's easy. And all of a sudden I realized it was when I did it in real estate. So I'm what they call a recovering realtor. I haven't done a real estate transaction in about 3 years. But prior to that, I worked with some of the best coaches in the country, and they taught me how to we would do 75 transactions a year. I never bought a transaction, never bought referrals from Zillow or any of that stuff. And we'd still do 75 deals. And one of the things that I learned real quickly in my career was I met a guy named Jay Abrahams. Have you guys ever heard of him by any chance? So Jay is the $1 billion man, is what they call him. And I met him, and he, of all the things he said and all the things he does, and Eddie Skinner, you both know me pretty well. I talk pretty fast. This guy talks at like he makes me look like an amateur, and he's the only guy I've ever met, even after I take my Ritalin. It's hard for me to keep up with him, like the thought process, but he's like just a brilliant guy. And he slowed down and he said, how much, how many times, how many people? He goes, if you get nothing out of this whole entire conversation, how much, how many times, how many people? He goes, I don't care if you're selling buggy whips or real estate, mortgages, houses, doesn't matter. Right? So I said, all right, well, tell me more about that. So Eddie, let's just say Eddie Skinner, right? We're going to use, and Faye, if you can give us like 5 minutes of your time.
I'm right here.
By the way, we're going to introduce Mrs. Skinner, who's the leader of the pack, obviously. Keeps us all in line.
She cracks the whip.
Yep. Hey, Faye, what is what is the average sale price of your people in your office, I guess, or your actual business?
I'd say actual is 3 to 320.
Okay, so Faye is 320, right? And Eddie, what about your loan amount?
We're right around that. I'd say 300.
Okay, 300. Faye, how many of those you do a year, you think?
Well, I just completed my first year.
Nice.
I actually sold or listed 8.
8. That's awesome, man. By the way, congratulations. I don't know if you know this. The average realtor, any idea how many houses they used to sell? Full-time, by the way, 6. Now it's down to 4.
Oh, wow.
So you're outperforming the market by 100%. So I don't care what your husband says. You should take you to dinner or do something. Right. So 8 units. All right. So if I had to look at it, we're going to ask me this question this morning is how do I double how do I double my average transaction price, which is the same as your wife saying, how do I double my sale price?
Right.
Okay. So remember what I said? I said, how much, how many times, right? So first of all, on the real estate side, if you don't have a notepad, I would write this down, Faye.
Okay.
Is this, and the only reason why I'm going to say you should write it down, unless you don't want to double your income, because I'm going to say to you that when I first got in real estate, my coach said, okay, what's your average sale price? And I gave him the sale price, and he goes, I know for a fact there's properties in your backyard that are worth more than that. Why are you working in the cheap seats? And I'm like, what are you talking about? I go, no, that's what it is. I don't have any control over that. And he said to me point blank, he said, yes, you do. Don't ever say that again. And I was like, okay. So I'll give you an example of this. When I would sell a house, the first thing I would teach you to do would be is it's a real simple marketing process. Very, very, very complicated, but I'm going to make it simple for you. Ready?
Right.
Find somebody who wants to sell a house. Have a conversation with them, right? Get them to say yes. Get a contract. Put a sign in the front lawn. Take your phone, hold it up like this. Do a video of yourself. Do a Facebook. Post it. Tell everybody in the world that you just listed that house for sale.
I do that.
Then you're going to say it's a pre-listing, or whatever you want to call it, pre-open house, right? Whatever that exclusive listing, right?
Yeah.
Then when you're going to do the open house, what do you think you do? Get out your phone, stand out there, do the same thing. By the way, I would, if I was new to the business, or if you were coaching with me, the first thing I would tell you to do is go to that house, go to every one of those houses you sold, go to 5 doors on the left and 5 doors on the right, knock on all the doors, say, hey, how you doing? My name is Faye. I just want to let you know, I want to introduce you to your new neighbors. They're Mary Jo and Bobby Sue. They have a young family, and I'd love for you to meet them unless you're thinking of selling. Were you thinking of moving anytime soon? By the way, you didn't ask them yes or no anytime soon, because you want to ask them open-ended questions, right? The next thing you're going to do is after you actually put that house on the market, I would call somebody like Eddie or me and go to your partners and find out where you can get the phone numbers for everybody in that immediate area, in that grid, if you will, right? And you may want to call it three by three, what I would call them, what I mean by 3 by 3 is 300 this way, 300 that way, because you're only going to get 10 out of 100. So you're only going to speak to about 30 people, right? I don't know if you heard me say this. I did 2,000 transactions with me and 3 people and never bought a deal. But how did I do it? Is I made it a point of, I had a habit of every morning from 8 o'clock to 11 o'clock to talk to 25 people. By the way, not 25 dials, 25 conversations. Hi, Faye, how are you? I just sold the house in your area. It was over at 123 Jones Street. And I was just wondering, usually 1 home sells, 2 more will sell right away. And I was wondering, how soon do you plan on moving? Well, I mean, we don't plan on moving anytime soon. Matter of fact, they're going to carry me out of here. You know what, Faye, that's fantastic. We have a program for that. We'll come out and measure you as long as you're still vertical. You have to be vertical and breathing, though, in order for us to measure you.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, that is really the script, because if you can get somebody to laugh, once they laugh, you got them. They're yours.
Yeah.
Right. Next thing I would do is, in addition to getting the list of everybody in that immediate area, next thing you want to do is take your town or your area that you work in, your county, buy a map, a big map, put it on the wall. Go to Staples, buy the push pins, the little push pin things. You want 3 of them. You want a green one, a yellow one, and a red one. You're going to put the red one on any of the properties in the last 12 months. What I would do is, how many properties sell in your multiple listing service in the county that you work in a year? Roughly.
A bunch.
Okay. Well, if you looked at just a smaller piece of that, right? More than, like, I'll give you, when you say a bunch, let me just put this in perspective for you. Is it competitive where you work, Faye?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. How many real estate offices do you think you have within a mile of each other?
1,000. That's a lot.
You ever heard of a town called Hoboken, New Jersey?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Hoboken is a mile square. When I worked there, it was only 14 blocks long. Now it's 16 or 18 blocks. I don't know how they did that, but it was 14. And it's 10 blocks deep. There's 53 real estate offices and 4,000 realtors in a mile square. So when people tell me, "Oh, it's competitive," I'm like, you have no idea. And what's interesting is there's only 650 to 700 transactions a year, which means 14 sides, 1,400 sides, right? So what I would suggest is create a market that's your market, that you say, I don't want to go more than 30 minutes in this direction or 30 minutes in that direction, right? Whatever that is, create that market and make the map. Then what, right?
I know my area.
She knows what she's doing.
Yeah.
Like we've already discussed, we're not going to Sugarland. We're not going to the other side.
Yeah, you're not going out to the sticks.
Yeah.
You're going to like what I'm about to say too, because I'm going to actually dial it in for you, even make it even easier. You're going to take that map, and Eddie, you would do the same in your market, by the way.
Right.
And you're going to take it, and what you might have your son or somebody else do this for you over the holidays. Have him print out all the sales that took place in your MLS in that area that you want to be in, those towns or those counties, right? And sort them by price. And then what you want to do is have him take the red push pins, right? Put them on all the properties that were below how much your average price was, 300 and 300, 320, right? So anything 10% less than the average, right? Which would be 275. Right. You're going to put a red push pin wherever that house was. Then what you're going to do is any properties that actually sold at the asking price, you're going to take the yellow ones. Anything that's like 15 or I would call it 15 or 10 or 15% above the average sale price. Put the pins on there. And then what you're going to do is anything that's at what I'm looking at is saying 300. Okay, 600. Anything that's 600 or more, put a green one. Here's the reason why. What you're going to do is the next time you list or sell a house, first thing you're going to do is you're going to look at the map. So what I was always taught was if I sold a house or listed a house on 123 Jones Street, and Hoboken was a grid, right? 1st Street, 14th Street, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? It was 10 blocks deep. If I sold a house on 3rd Street, and let's just call it Washington, which was Main Street, if I sold on 3rd, I usually would have started on 3rd and called all the people between like 3rd and 6th Street and 3rd and 1st Street, right? And told everybody I was listing this house or selling this house, right? Then what my coach did, he goes, listen, when you put that house in contract or any phone call you're going to make, look at the map first. If your house is 300, 300 1st Street, look at the map and figure out where your green dots are. Start at the green dots and work your way backwards. Don't start at the red dots and work your way out. Start at the green dots and work your way backwards. By the way, that little exercise, I increased my price point by 30% in the first year. I ultimately became like the luxury expert in the market, not on purpose. It just happened because I just started to go toward, anytime I got on the phone, I look at the map first and start at the green pins and work my way backwards. The other thing that you want to do is, and it's very, very intentional, we get what we attract, is you want to do the exercise and say, what is my ideal client profile? And I think your husband has heard me say this. He may not have, he may have. When people talk to me, and Eddie, when I first met Mickey, he asked me, he goes, oh my God, your loan sizes are so big. And I go, it's no accident. He goes, well, what do you mean? I go, well, here's the people I like to talk to. Make $250,000 or more. They have one advanced degree. They got at least a half a kid in the house or one on the way, and they're not on their first home. And if they are in their first home, they spell cat differently. They don't spell it with a K. They have somebody else spell it for them. And he goes, what are you talking about? I'm like, if you have an advanced degree, that means that you make $250,000 or more. You're not the landscaper who's writing off all your money. That means that you can actually get a mortgage. You're also typically, you're also somebody that over time, you're going to continue to go up in value in my book, because I don't want to do just one transaction with you. I want you to be a repeat customer. By the way, I also want you because you spend time with the 5 people just like you. There's usually somebody at like much higher than them, somebody lower than them. But if they're the average, they're the average.
Right.
So those 2 things right out of the gate creating your ideal client profile. And by the way, Faye, where does your business come from now?
Friends and family referrals.
Okay. If I took your phone, you want to take a little wager with me?
No.
You're probably not going to like it. So I take your phone. How many people you think are in your phone?
Oh, I know. I have a lot.
What's a lot?
A couple of thousand.
Okay.
Not as many as Eddie, because
How many
Eddie
has he got?
talks to everybody. Oh, like I don't know,
15,000.
15,000. Yeah. And
Yeah.
in
I
my
have
phone,
26,000.
in my phone, I also have a ton of realtors, because before I got my real estate license, I helped Eddie with marketing and wooing
Right.
realtors and going to all the closings and sending gifts and all of that. Yeah. And I
So
still
here's
do
a bet
closings
for
and
you.
mailers.
So what I used to do, and what I still do, is when I do lunch and learns, right?
Yeah.
I'm known in my area. I mean, listen, when you do 75 transactions a year for 25 years in northern New Jersey, I have people all over the country, that I'm friends with and stuff, because we were in the mastermind groups with the top 50 realtors in the country. But in my immediate area, if I call somebody on their cell phone, they immediately pick it up because they think I got another listing or something.
Yeah.
So like you, I have a lot of realtors, but ideally what I would suggest is, and this is a great time of year to do it, by the way, is when I do lunch and learns, I'll say, hey, who in the office is really good at following up with their past client center of influence? Of course, everybody raises their hand, right? And then I'll say, okay, who wants to bet that they contact their people on a regular basis? There's usually one or two people that keep their hand up. I'll say, okay, great, give me your phone. I go, what we're going to do is this. I'm going to start dialing through your phone, and everybody I get on the phone, I'm going to ask them and say, hey, do you know Faye's in the real estate business? What do you mean Faye's in the real estate business? If they don't know you're in the real estate business, you pay me $100. How many people can I call before I dial through your bank account? I'm going to say it again. How many people can I call before I dial through your bank account?
Yeah.
Right. By the way, it really is your bank account, because your bank account is equated to how many people know that you're in the real estate business now. Right. Mm-hmm. The other thing that you could do very carefully and very easily, you know what, Faye? I realized I used to work with my husband. Now I'm actually working as a realtor also. Let me ask you a question. Is there anybody you're working with that, you just don't feel like you're a good fit for? And I'll do the same for you. So that's another way of doing business, because, by the way, as a realtor, when I was a realtor, there was people after a while, I just couldn't get along with them. And I would just say, hey, you know what? Go see Faye. She's got a lot more patience than I do, or whatever.
Yeah.
Or you want to call them and say, hey, by the way, is there anybody doing your open houses? Right. That's the other way of doing it. Yes. I think if you, one of the other pieces of the puzzle though is because your business feeds each other, you want to get into a rhythm on how you promote yourselves. The other thing would be is having the ideal client profile that you're looking for. I mean, like, this is going to sound weird. When I worked with Mike Ferry, I don't know if you know that name. Mike is the OG of real estate coaching. Okay. I was walking into a mastermind group, and I was the kid from New York with the hair slicked back and the members only black jacket, that kind of thing. Bear in mind, it was 30 years ago. I actually had brown hair, not gray. Mm-hmm. And he stops me at the door and he goes, Shallis. He goes, come here. He goes, I go, yep. And I was like his third child, like I was like his prodigy in the Northeast. And all of a sudden he says to me, he goes, you got to get married. I go, what are you talking about? He goes, you got to get married. I go, what? I go, I got a Tuesday girl. I got a Thursday girl. I even have a half day Saturday girl every other week. Depends on when she's got her kids or not. I got a dog. My house is paid for. I'm good to go. And he's like, that's my point. He goes, you're comfortable. He goes, you got to get uncomfortable. You got to get married. You got to have you need a higher purpose. I was like, okay. And that weekend we were doing the book called Attracting the Perfect Customer. Every quarter we would bring in speakers that just wrote books, and Jack Canfield, Deepak Chopra, all kinds of crazy people. And that particular book, he said to me, he goes, listen, don't do the exercise for the perfect customer, do it for the perfect spouse. And I carried around a 3x5 card in my pocket with 10 things I wanted in the perfect woman. I kid you not. When I met my wife, I was going up to a ski resort to hang out with a pharmaceutical rep. And she came in and my wife came in, who I didn't know. My wife, all of a sudden I went, oh my God, that's like 6 out of 10. I'm going to hang out with that girl. Started hanging out with her. Next thing you know, we had dinner. 6 months later, I was engaged. And and by the way, but for probably a year and a half, I had that piece of paper in my pocket and I would remind myself of what that perfect situation looked like. My mortgage business, by the way, I talked a lot about my real estate business, which is kind of cool, right? And people, when I do coaching, they'll say, you don't understand. It's different now, right? Obviously. Eddie's known me about a year or two, right? Mm-hmm. I got my license to May of 2022. I did 6 million that year. And by the way, the second week in the business, I went to the first sales meeting in person that they did after COVID. President of sales comes out for the 5th largest bank in the United States and says, oh my God, this is the worst mortgage market I've ever seen in 30 years. I was like, yeah, great. Awesome. I did the exercise that I just told you because after doing 6 million, I said, like, you know what? My boss was like, oh yeah, pretty soon you'll be like Maggie and you'll do 10 deals a month at 300,000 each. And I'm like, ooh, that sounds like jail. It sounds painful. Mm-hmm. I go, I didn't do that in my real estate career. I'm not going to do it here. And all I did was I sat down and went, okay, where do I find that perfect audience? Right. And I mean, it helped my background in the military was a ranger and a sniper. So I didn't like to shoot at a lot of people, just one. My goal was to put a bullet in your head and get away before anybody saw me. Same principle. The mortgage business, though, after the first year, I reevaluated it and said, okay, how can I do this? How can I do work less, make more, do less conversations? So I focused on that ideal client profile. Year 2 was probably one of the more challenging years in 2023. I did 12 million and now I'm on track to do 21. I don't know if your husband will kind of tell you that's probably pretty good. I don't even know, to be honest with you. I don't even look up. I just keep my head down and keep going to work and somebody like these guys say, oh, that's great. And I'm like, not for me. I feel like I'm slacking. And that's just my personality. So does it work? Yes. Can you do it in any market? Yes. Can you do it in any economy? Yeah. I mean, I changed careers I coached mortgage people for 15 years. I know better. I know more about mortgages than most mortgage people did. But I had never underwritten a loan and I had never really had to go get a mortgage. So, and quite honestly, most of my book is not realtors that I have relationships with in the past. They're new relationships, which is kind of ironic, but that is what it is. I hit you with all 3 barrels. What questions do you have and how, what do you think the easiest way is to implement what we talked about? You look perplexed. He looks like.
I think so. Are you asking me or Faye?
Yeah, either. It's one and the same in this market.
We're huge.
I think having the value of the map is just seeing it every day and having visualization. Having the picture of that. I think we know generally about the map. I think we know kind of generally the areas. I think we know generally, not as specifically, our ideal client. I think Faye and I both sitting down and saying, we've been around here forever. You've been here since 76. I've been here since 69. And so we know boatloads of people to try to map out an ideal client and say, hey, we're going to target this. And what's our strategy for targeting that?
Let me give you a different way of doing it.
Okay.
You probably agree with me. Your assumptions are only as good as the assumption. When you open the Redder and you look at Redder and go, oh my God. Right.
Right.
So let me give you a little help. Go to List Source is one of the good ones. Go to List Source, it's called, and look at all the people, you can get a list of everybody that's actually got a mortgage over X amount of dollars with X amount of percent. Okay. And right now that may not be as valuable to you, Eddie,
right,
but it's very valuable to your wife.
right,
Because if they got a mortgage for, call it 750, okay, or more, that means the house is probably 1.1, 1.2.
right,
By the way, there's probably not as many of those. You may have to go out wider.
Right.
But I'd rather go wider and do, like, in the past 4 days, I think I might have sent this to you in a chat or not. I said, I'm short on my goal. I need about another 4 or 5 million. Right. And I'm thinking, 4 or 5 million, crap. That's like, 6, 8 deals or whatever it is. Right. Mm-hmm. Then all of a sudden I got a loan for 1.2. The loan amount of 1.2, not the house. I got another one for $999, and they both want to close by the end of the year. So, and by the way, it wasn't like I was fishing for it. It just happened to be that's been my focus. And I keep repeating to myself, that's, and instead of focusing on the how, most people focus on how. You don't focus on the how, you focus on the what. The how will come and it'll manifest itself, believe it or not. If you focus on it long enough, I know you're very spiritual. If you focus on it long enough, eventually somebody's going to show up with it. And whether it's a person or a being or something higher power than you or me both combined, whatever it is or wherever it comes from, that how will show up once you start to focus on it. And the way I would do it, I wouldn't guess. I would number one, I would go into some resource like a data source. If you can't get it, let me know. I'll have my guys do it. I own a data company. When I was a realtor, I did this for my whole business. What I did was this. I moved my kids out to the suburbs from Hoboken, which is about 40 miles west into the burbs. And I looked at the 2 feeder markets for my town and said, show me in these counties, which is like in New Jersey, the counties are much smaller. It's probably like the northern New Jersey is probably 1 county for you guys.
Right.
I said, listen, in these counties, show me all the people that actually make 250,000 or more, have 1 advanced degree. That exact profile that I gave you, believe it or not, there's only 7,000 people. And only 62 of them had a mortgage. 6,200 of them had a mortgage. What's interesting is about 1,200 of them had a mortgage with a rate that was like over 7%.
Oh, wow.
So when once you get that profile, and now you have that group of people, what do you think you do with it? Now what you do is you put it in a Facebook group and you create a custom audience. And you start to do posts just about the neighborhood, and Faye just does it like, hey, I'm at my favorite hair salon. I want you to meet Mary. I'm out front, or I'm at my favorite dog grooming place.
Right.
Whatever it is, right? I'm at the vet, whatever those conversations look like, all the things that you do on a daily basis, other people are going to want to do. But now what you're doing is the people that are following you are people at your ideal client profile. And now what you do is you get the AI from the Go High Level and that stuff. You get it to push on it for you, and you get it to now introduce you to them through artificial intelligence or start to open up a conversation. Right. And then the other piece of it would be is you start to follow those people on Facebook, and you see where they spend time. Is there an association they belong to? Is there a dinner club they belong to? Even though you belong to a country club, is it possible they're going someplace else or doing something outside the area together where it's kind of like that secret club that you might not know about unless you're really in that upper echelon of peeps?
Right.
Makes sense?
Yep. Faye is great on the social media stuff and Facebook. And, one thing I don't think we've done is targeted audiences. I've got almost 5,000 people on my Facebook friends,
Yep.
but we've not.
But friends and customers are different. Like it's interesting when I built out a TikTok just recently, and my kids were teasing me. So my kids are like 16 and 18.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, "Oh my God, Dad, my friends are following you. This is crazy." And I'm like, "Leave me alone." Right. And then they were like, it takes a long time. I was able to grow to 1,900 people very quickly and very easily. But what I did do, and one of the things I got from artificial intelligence to tell me to do was don't friend your friends in Facebook, which is the opposite of what you would think. You'd think like, oh, let me go put my friends from Facebook on here. Yeah, but then the algorithm only shows your content to the people that are friends of yours. When you have no friends, they have to show it to somebody. So they show it to people that don't know you. And then what you do is you follow them. And when you follow them, they follow you back. So 1 out of 5 will follow you back. So that's a little tricky way of doing it is instead of, you take the audience you already have, you create a custom audience in Facebook with it. Then what you do is you create a new profile for like your business page or whatever. And instead of pushing your followers there, you leave that alone and let the algorithm find them for you.
Yeah.
Which is the complete polar opposite of what it would be.
Yeah. I've been noticing that about my Facebook real estate group. None of my friends.
Right.
Yeah.
But you're okay with that.
I don't know who knows me and why.
On your business page?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're okay with that. Here's the funny thing is, like, when I was in the real estate business, somebody would say to me, you're not very attractive in the morning. And I'm like, well, if you try calling me between 7 in the morning and 12 o'clock, I'm going to throw something at you. And my assistant would literally lock me in my office from the outside in. And if you came and knocked on my door or came in my office, first of all, my assistant would probably tackle you on the way in. But between that time was when I was making outbound phone calls. But after 1 o'clock, I was actually probably one of the nicest guys because if you ask me a question, I love to coach people. I always did. So if you ask me a question, I'd say, oh yeah, Faye, here, let me show you. But it's all about timing and it's all about when and who. And what's interesting is I used to say to people all the time, I go, if you go to the surgeon, whether you like him or not, if that surgeon says to you, hey, how many times do you do this operation? And they go like once a month. And I go to Faye and she says, oh, I do that operation like twice a week. I'm taking my kid to Faye. I don't care. Yeah. I don't care if I like her or not. And she could be the nastiest surgeon, which most surgeons are, by the way. They're usually arrogant and whatever. I don't care. If you're the best at what you do, I'm going to you. So it stands to reason that you're attracting those people into your real estate circle because of your knowledge and your experience more so than, who's doing what, where, when, and why. Yeah.
That's.
I think if I was in by the way, you're the ideal agent for someone to hire. And I'll tell you why. When I started my company, there's a book by, if you've never got it, you should get it. And just read it for no other reason, just for the background in it. It's the Red Book by Gary Keller. It's a $1 Million Real Estate Agent. Yeah, I have it. I have it here somewhere. But that book, friends of mine and I we watched them write it, which is kind of cool. In that book, it'll give you 2 different models. One is a marketing model and the other one is a prospecting model. And what's interesting is you'll learn pretty quickly that the marketing model is very expensive and takes time. Whereas the prospecting model, it's a numbers game. And, if you have if you're good at building an audience and getting followers and stuff like that, all day long, I would, and here's what's interesting. Had you asked me 10 years ago or 5 years ago, even, what's the best way to build a business, either marketing or prospecting? I would have said prospecting all day long. I would have said unequivocally prospecting. Going into the market we're going into and the way that technology is changing and the way that the compliance is changing, marketing is going to be just as valuable or more valuable. And the reason why is, Eddie, how many times have you had your phone shut down and go high level and A2P?
A bunch.
Right. How hard is it to get it approved now?
Oh, yeah.
To get a phone number approved. And even if you get it approved, doesn't mean you're still going to be able to send a text.
Right.
So, by the way, Faye, we're talking about a guy who I've been in. I don't even know if you know this. Apple has jail. They have Apple jail for people that do. I've been in Apple jail.
Yeah. Well, I do know.
I've been in that.
I've been in Apple jail where the lady said, if you text one more person like this,
yes,
you'll have to get a new phone.
Yeah.
And it's about to get harder. They're going to get stiffer in 2025.
Exactly. So that's why I'm saying to you that, like, had you asked me 4 years ago, I would have said, oh my God, no way. But now I think there's something to be said for at the very beginning of this, I said, hey, the Success Addicts Collective, right? Which is our tribe. I'm in the process of writing a new book called The Success Addiction, The Wealthy Addiction. The tribe, or the people within that group, are called Success Addicts. And there's people that are struggling. There's people that maybe like Eddie and I, they're success addicts, or I would consider myself a success junkie, right? Which is, the highest level, if you will. But the idea is, and the concept is, create an ecosystem and get them in your ecosystem so that they're there. And once you get, like online marketers talk about getting an email list. Eddie has a great list right now. He's got 5,000 people, but he's probably like me. If he tried to sell them something, nobody would buy anything because they don't know him as a salesperson. They know him. Well, they know him as a salesperson. They know him as a mortgage guy, but they know him as being forthright, contributing, all that stuff. Yeah. But if he tried to say, hey, I want you to buy my new course for $395, they're probably going to laugh at you. They did with me, and I had 20,000 people. So, I think your shortest path is take the 8 people you've already sold the house to, call them all up and ask them the same question. Hey, I just want to let you know what a great experience it was working with you. I realize you put a lot of trust and a lot of faith in me, even though I've been here for years, decades. I've worked in the real estate business next to my husband for years. I really, you trusted in me. And knowing that, I'm just curious, is there anybody else that that's just like you? Because I enjoyed working with you, Faye. And I'm just wondering, I'm getting ready to do this again this year. And I'm wondering, is there anybody in your church and your family, or in your house of worship or where you work that might need my help in the next 3 to 6 months? Well, I don't know. Well, can I count on you at least to give me a call? By the way, write this down. Call me immediately. Call me immediately. By the way, that is what they call an embedded command in neurolinguistic programming. If you listen to me talk, or if you watch my videos, you'll hear me say, call me immediately. It's an embedded command. And anytime you talk to somebody, make sure you give me your phone number 3 times.
Okay.
Yep. Any questions?
I got one question, and then we got to jump off here.
I got it too. My kid is texting me right now saying, when are we eating?
Oh, gosh.
Hey, that's what I'm fixing to ask Faye. What's for dinner?
It's only 4 o'clock here.
I'm joking.
Well, it's 5 o'clock here.
Yeah. It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Hey.
Amen. I can drink margaritas anytime.
Me too.
Difference between marketing and prospecting. So you used that, but you never told us the difference on that.
Okay. Prospecting. Well, let's start the other way. Marketing. Passive aggressive. Put something out there, right? And hope.
Right.
Not duplicatable, not repeatable in most cases.
Right.
And if it is, very, very, very.
That's social media post. It's not one-on-one.
Here's the way I used to do this in coaching. If I put a gun to your face head and said, listen, you have a choice. You got to go find a deal. And if you don't find a deal in the next 24 hours, I'm pulling the trigger. Do you market? And do you go to do you go to an open house and advertise the open house, or go on Facebook or go on Twitter? Or do you prospect and call somebody that you know already owns a house and go kick the door down until you find somebody?
Right.
Right. Awesome. So that's part 1. Part 2 is, there's 2 definitions I always like to share with people. The definition of success is Earl Nightingale, right? The granddaddy of coaching and training. He was a reverend, by the way. The progressive realization of a worthwhile goal or a worthy ideal. That's his textbook response, right? And basically means that even if you're a really successful drug addict or drug dealer, doesn't make you successful because it's really not a worthy ideal. Right? But if you're a housewife and you have children, you raise your children and you're very successful at it, and it's the progressive realization of a worthwhile goal is making sure your kids are, the reflection of you or better, that's success. Here's the funny thing though, is what is the actual definition or in a verb, the action of it? That's the other definition. Standing in a hammock on one foot, juggling eggs. So prospecting is actively aggressively having a conversation with somebody who could buy, sell, or invest in a home as a realtor. And in your case, it will be somebody who can either needs a mortgage or needs to refinance or is interested in getting into real estate investing, where you can help them to leverage their real estate asset. Right. And that could be as much.
Did you say that is the you or face, and that's going to change a little bit in the next couple of years?
It is.
Which way?
It's going to go toward the marketing side.
Okay.
But the marketing side only works if you have a strategy, if you have a net.
Right.
So let me explain it this way. Years ago, like probably 15 years ago, 20 years ago, I sat in a meeting with the powers that be, and it was like the president of the National Association of Realtors, all the presidents of different companies and all that stuff. And we were invited in this because of our mastermind group was literally the top people in the country. And the conversation was about IDX, which is Internet Data Exchange, which is when they actually said, we're going to take the information from your MLS and we're going to push it through Zillow and all that stuff, right? And about 5 years ago or 8 years ago, I started having conversations around the business has changed. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, Faye and I could have made a living in real estate by working on what I call the float, which is all those deals that are, maybe they don't have a relationship, or they do, but they didn't like it. They're the cousin brother or sister, and their cousin brother or sister passed away, right? And they're just out there kind of floating around and they're poking around on the internet. Except that when they changed the model and they changed the Internet Data Exchange, what they did was really it was kind of like when they brought in the Chinese fishing trawlers into places like up in Maine, where they literally come with giant nets, and they take the trawler and they go and scoop up all the fish, all those little fish that were like floating around that we could have lived on the float. They're scooping them up. And the worst part is, not only are they scooping them up, Faye, you'd love this. I go out, and have you guys seen The Greatest Catch? Where the guy's on the end of the boat and it's like storming and everything. He's trying to get the crab in the boat, right? So the guy, I'm out there trying to catch the fish, and I finally get the fish, right? And I throw it in the back of the boat, and the guy from Zillow catches it. And he goes, "Hey, Sean, by the way, I got a great buyer that wants to buy your listing." I'm like, "Oh, that's great. Oh, man." He goes, "Yeah, it's only going to cost you 37%. I'm like, "What are you talking about? It's my listing. I was the guy who went fishing for it. I caught it. I brought it in off the shore, put it on the boat, and put it in the fish. I put it in the fishery, for Christ's sakes. What are you talking about? You're going to sell me back my lead." Well, by the way, that's what's happening. And that's what's been happening. So that model has already infiltrated the real estate business. It's the mortgage business next. And so now what you really need to start to do is you need to control the eyes that you already own. So the 5,000 you already have, the 20,000 in your phone, you need to get in front of them and start to give them content and give them value.
Right.
Whether it's, listen, I've seen your videos. Your passion comes through. Your history of being, your background of being a preacher. Right. I'm not sure if that's the right
pastor.
Pastor. Yeah. Your background of being a pastor comes across, and I would layer that in with, homogeneously delivering that and delivering information. Right. And what information are you going to talk about? You could do the coffee table after work with a glass of wine or a margarita and be like, "Oh my God, Eddie, you wouldn't believe what happened today. Tell me more about it." "Well, Faye, how'd you deal with that?" "Well, this is what happened, and this is what we ended up doing. But thank God we were able to get it fixed. Problem, the hook, the solution.
Right.
What's the problem? By the way, if you've never or you haven't seen it in a long time, go watch The Music Man, the movie or the play.
Right.
If you watch it, the first thing he does is he gets into town, and the premise of The Music Man is he's a con man. I'm gonna sell him that they need to have a marching band, and I'm gonna take all the money and run. The guy comes into town, he does his little speech, and in the back in the corner is another con man that he saw in another town, and he's like, oh, right. So after he does his presentation, the other con man comes over and he says, oh my God, I can't believe it. He goes, you're in the wrong town, man. There's nothing going on. He goes, well, what's the problem in the town? The guy goes, nothing. That's just it. And The Music Man, there's got to be a problem. Every town has a problem. Got to have a problem or we can't sell them anything. He goes, well, they brought a pool table in. Oh my God, those heathens. Could you imagine a pool table? And he makes an entire case about the pool table. Right. And he brings them a solution. By the way, figure out what your pool table is.
Right.
Every day you go through a deal where you have something go. Anytime you have to say something twice or 3 times a day,
right,
there's your hook.
Yeah.
But engage the audience and get them to start to. You need to give them value, and you need to get them in your own ecosystem. And if that's on Faye's page, I would do the husband and wife page together, and I would just do it as like the coffee thing. Faye's like, I don't want him.
Well, now we just don't want to push any realtors away from Eddie because his wife is a realtor. We don't want that to affect Eddie's business. He still reaches out to all those realtors, and I don't want them to think that. I don't know.
So here's the
idea of us doing some videos together. If we did a Zoom together and just talked about, hey, what are some issues we're facing? Here's some solutions we've had. I like that, and we could.
I think you can. Faye, do you guys always get along?
No.
Of course not. Of course not. Right?
I do.
By the way, what sells?
I'm easy.
What sells is controversy.
Yeah.
Conflict.
Yeah.
Yeah, I work with my husband. You know what? I don't always do mortgages with him because he's a pain in my ass. But I got to tell you, I've seen him do it for years. And the one thing I can say is, you know what? He does the right thing every time. It's not about the money. It's about the people.
Yeah.
And he cares. And by the way, I know that about your husband. That's why I can say that. But
yeah.
The reality is that the people that you're going to push away, you're going to push away anyway.
Right. That's what I've told her. I said, hey.
I will say this is when I got my real estate license, when I got my mortgage, started doing mortgages, right? I'm a pretty well-known guy in the space, like very nationally, right? And I don't mean that arrogantly. I just mean it matter-of-factly. And when I would go to an office, the first thing the broker would do is Google my name and pull it up on the real estate license and go, where's his license? And they would see that I was at EXP, and they're like, we're not bringing him in. He's going to recruit our people. I actually gave up about 12, 15 grand a year in residual business from KW and EXP from my downlines that I built. Like my upline, my immediate upline controls 15% of the sales force at EXP. Like there's 3 of them that do it together. They own their own jet. Like they have a G4 that they share. Wow. They make $1.5 million a month. They live in Puerto Rico. And I probably made a mistake when I left, but so be it. It just was time for me. I was just done. Eddie has heard me say this. Like people were like, why'd you leave? You did so well. I'm like, if I saw another purple kitchen, I was going to choke myself. My now boss said, yeah, but when you're coaching our salespeople, we got to pull you off the ceiling. You're so excited. He goes, you're in the wrong business. He goes, just get on the other side and let them send you to business as reciprocating for helping them. And by the way, you could do that too, is be the solution of, I would do it. I would make it a point twice a week or something. Have the coffee conversation or have the margarita conversation. Oh right. Man.
Right.
And you I've seen your porch in your backyard with pictures from him. I would sit out on the lake when the sun's going down.
Yeah.
Beautiful backdrop, have a cocktail and be like, yeah, crazy day today. All the loonies are out. And by the way, people know they're lunatics. You can call them out. It's okay.
Yeah.
That's part of the fun. Any other questions?
No, it's all good.
Dude, you know how to get me anyway. And,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
Faye, if you do me a favor, what kind of phone do you use?
iPhone.
iPhone. Open up your phone and go into the App Store and look for Realty Coach, one word, and download the app. It's going to ask you to just register and you know, open it up. Don't buy anything because you're in the club. I'm going to stick a bunch of free stuff in there for you.
Okay.
One of the things that's in there, Eddie, is what we talked about was, and you said, hey, can you give me a business plan?
Right.
A one-page business plan. I'm going to give you when I get a chance. I can't do it now. I got to go feed somebody.
Yeah.
I'm going to send you a course in there. It's how to build a six-figure income in real estate. In there is the 10x personal success formula, which I've used with like 1,500, 2,000 agents. It's an 8 to 10 page paperback book that I created. When I changed companies, my company took like 10 listings. They sued me for $300,000, the whole 9 yards. And October 26th, between then and the first of the year, I did 14 listings, 10 sales, and made $125,000. Like from zero, legitimately, I didn't even have a business card.
Right.
But I had 2 kids that knew Christmas was coming. So, but that plan is in there, and it's easy for you guys to execute. You can do all of it or part of it. You know,
Awesome.
and if you got a question, you guys know where to find a coach.
Yep. Yep.
All right.
Gotcha.
Good to go. That's it, man. I'll send you a link and open it up for you. Don't pay for anything.
Okay.
I'll tell my partner he can go poopy himself.
Man, we appreciate you.
All right, brother.
Yeah.
Listen, if I get the recording right on this, I don't know if I did it right or not. I'll send it to you.
Okay.
And if you got questions or anything at all, reach out.
All right.
Raise your hand.
Sounds great. Appreciate you. Have a good weekend.
Bye-bye.
Enjoy.
Yeah.
All right, ciao.